Morning councillors, staff, presenters and those listening from home. Welcome to the EANC Masterplan Hearing. So this is a information gathering part of the meeting. Submitters have a total of 10 minutes, 5 minutes to speak to their submissions and a further 5 minutes to answer questions. Questions from the elected members for the submitter to clarify matters raised in their submissions only and not to provide their opinions. Questions posed by submitters to council are not normally answered in this setting, and questions to officers are normally dealt with in the deliberations phase. Specific common questions are answered in our response to submitters following the process. So, to commence this morning, we have 4 submitters, and the first one up is Tanya, ready to go. Tanya, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I cannot overstate the critical importance of developing the EA Network Centre Greenfields space as a district central sporting hub. It's encouraging that the council have agreed to extend the EA Network Centre indoor stadium by 3 courts, even if this has been delayed to the last 3 years of the current long-term plan. However, delaying a commitment to the green space development beyond the long-term plan timeframes into the 30-year draft plan also poses significant financial concerns. As quoted a fortnight ago, affordability is a major part of this decision, and its pushing out will give successive councils a chance to re-evaluate it against the economic conditions of that time. This point is critical and is what I wish to address in support of my submission. Aligning the timelines with the green space development with the indoor space or indoor stadium extension would provide all community stakeholders with a very clear plan. With an estimated cost of $23.7 million for the indoor extension, discussions should be held with the sports codes that will directly benefit from this extension. They should be encouraged to form partnerships with the council to potentially bring forward the development start date, which in turn could prevent cost escalations or indefinite delays, or in the case of the green space development, prevent it from being pushed into the 30-year plan or worse, cancelled. Potential community partners could work together to ensure or to secure financial commitments and create a fundraising plan to be ready in 7 years, assisting the council's decision-making processes. This includes the rugby union, which has worked really hard in recent years towards building a sustainable financial future. My submission highlighted the challenges faced by the union at our current situation at the Ashburton Showgrounds and the need for Mid-Canterbury Rugby to make sensible investment decisions in any facility development. Investing in the EA Network Centre development represents a strategic investment in the community's well-being and the region's economic growth, securing a financially sound future. Without adequate facilities, we risk falling behind other districts in attracting national events and tournaments, impacting on the region's economic growth and competitiveness. Modern, accessible sports facilities promote active lifestyles, they foster a sense of belonging, and they facilitate positive community interactions. The proposed development includes features like all-weather artificial turf, gender-neutral changing facilities, enhancing accessibility for all community members. Attracting larger events and tournaments has the potential to bolster the local economy and position Mid-Canterbury as a competitive destination for sports tourism. Being active contributes positively to the overall well-being, and starting young helps Kiwi kids develop a lifelong love of physical activity. Every New Zealander should have access to quality experiences at their home, within their neighbourhood and across their community. In 2019, New Zealand Rugby, alongside 4 other major sporting codes, signed a statement of intent with Sport New Zealand to keep young people in sport. Mid-Canterbury Rugby Union, aligning with the New Zealand Rugby strategy, has prioritised women and girls, teenage boys and club health as 3 of our 5 priorities through to 2026. We currently deliver 700 hours per year through our in-school programs. That's nearly 18 hours a week, the school terms, across all 23 schools in our province, more than any other sporting code and without any assistance from local government. This dedicated focus has already shown results, with our overall growth in 2023 up 23% from the previous year. Our first quarter this year, we're up 11% on that. Teenage boys have grown from 5 teams in 2023 to 9 teams plus a first 15 this year. So we're obviously doing something right. These results are in direct conflict with those that have been reported in the Council's utilisation study report last year, which regrettably continues to be the basis for some decisions about developments. We ran a Voice of the Participants survey of over 500 girls recently, and the most popular response was that they want girls-only grades and competitions. Currently, we cannot offer this due to the lack of suitable facilities, both at the showgrounds and across our clubs. They also want to play at times outside of traditional rugby season, which we can't accommodate due to the union having access to the grounds only from not having access to the grounds from October to March, and the prohibitive costs for our clubs to maintain their fields 12 months of the year. With a significant surge in sports participation, particularly in rugby, and the growing demand for modern facilities, the need for a dedicated facility is more pressing than ever. Offering alternative options to traditional Saturday rugby, such as night rugby or after-school midweek rugby, encourages youth participation and frees up weekends for families and utilises facilities more efficiently. By offering quality experiences, we provide our participants with a fun and engaging environment. The Union's unwavering commitment to this vision has been reiterated in several successive submissions to the Council's long-term plan and facility strategies, and we will continue to highlight the urgency of this matter. Mid-Canterbury Rugby Union urges the Council to prioritise the development of the green space alongside the indoor stadium extensions, expedite the realisation of this vision, integrating it into the current long-term plan as a matter of urgency. Investing in central community sports facilities for all sports promotes active lifestyles, it fosters community cohesion, and it stimulates economic growth. It's a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tania. Okay, questions from councillors? Mayor Brown.
Thanks, Tanya, for your submission. Well done. So what you're asking for, you like the concept of what we've got for the...
Absolutely.
You just want us to bring the
I just want it to be brought back into the long-term plan alongside the extensions for the stadium. I believe there's partners out in our community that would be open to discussions now about partnering with the council, including us and including potentially a couple of our clubs that could actually partner to get this facility up and running within 10 years.
Would you have any idea what that contribution could be, or is that too early?
I'm not putting a dollar figure on it now. You'll hold me to it.
Possibly.
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you, Mayor. It's a figure. It's a finite. It's an infinite figure, isn't it? It could be a 1.2 million this year, but in a couple of years' time, it could be 1.5. I just don't know.
No, but you're willing to.
But we are willing to have conversations.
And there's others around the...
And there are other clubs, and I have had conversations with a couple of my clubs who are now looking at, for their own sustainability, looking at merging or collaborative work with other clubs. And I have been told previously, before my time, that there was conversations had with one club to partner with the union to go to the development when it was first mooted. And they're still very keen to have those conversations.
Thanks for that. It's great.
Yeah.
Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask if these local clubs, they sell their grounds and put all this money into this investment and into EA, that would be the end of their local clubs at their grounds, because it's become part of a community, their club rooms after games and things. I look at when you centralise like cricket and the hockey and that, you lose that district-wide feeling and camaraderie. It would be sad to lose that, wouldn't it?
Look, I think that's a reality of evolution, isn't it? Things move forward and have to change, and we can't always live in the past. I understand what you're saying, and I do know that there's a lot of pushback from clubs too. That's why we don't have Saturday rugby at the showgrounds anymore, because they wanted to be back in their clubs, and we support that fully. Those are conversations around what a merge or what a partnership would look like and how that would impact on their clubs is a conversation to still be had. but they are very keen to be able to get into a space where they have some support and their sustainability, their membership is sustainable.
And the other one I was just going to ask about the showgrounds. Are you working collaboratively with them
Absolutely.
about the future?
Absolutely.
And suggesting you go into some contract and invest in it?
Look, to be perfectly honest, we've had a meeting last night, board to board, as an update. The council gave the AMP gave us an update last night on where they're at with their concept designs and their development. And they've got obviously other external groups that they have to negotiate with and get on board. It was pleasing to hear that that progress is happening. However, we still have concerns as a union about the sustainability of the AMP Association and their longevity around their financials, etc., etc. And I don't think it would be prudent as an organisation for us to invest the money that we've got to invest in into a facility that actually there is potential for it to fall over in a few years' time, and therefore no return on investment for us.
Because I know Hastings and a few others, they're all working together now, to try and keep, it's just a quick...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we are working with them. And as I said, last night's meeting was really positive. So, yeah.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Hi, Tania. The two fields, the Premier and the community field that are mapped out in the plan,
yep.
Would that be enough? I think back in the good old days where, there was JAB rugby and a whole heap of the grounds were all being used all at the same time and the showgrounds were full. So can you make two grounds work?
Look, I think we're in a really beneficial position with the placement of those fields because we have Allenton Rugby Club just down the road, and they have 1, 2, 3, probably 4 spaces that can be used as overflow for anything. But to be perfectly honest, we've only got 2 fields that are really usable during the day where we are at the moment. Our third field is used if we need to during daylight hours, but we can't use either. We can only use one field at night and it's only really half lit. So 2 fields that we could actually have 12 months a year, 7 days a week would be fantastic.
One more question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Do you see there being like as well as these fields, a sort of a social aspect to this for after match, and do you see that detracting from your club facilities?
I think in terms of after matches, that really is only at a representative level. We only host 4 after matches a year where we are at the moment for our Heartland rep team. In terms of teams playing and then going back to clubs, I can't. That would still happen. It would still happen. I mean, all of our clubs own their buildings. Yeah. There's only a couple of them that are in a position that, as I said earlier, are looking to amalgamate with other clubs. But I can't see that as changing.
I'm conscious of time, gentlemen. Two quick questions. First from Councillor Wilson.
The makeup. Morning. The makeup of the fields. Would you expect? You talked about composite, sort of. Are they? Would you expect grass to be there, or is it some sort of composite material, or where would you see it going?
So I would like to see an all-weather turf that could be used, obviously for a variety of fields-based sports, and that obviously gives us the ability to be able to play in the wet and in the middle of winter. But I would imagine that the main field, the Premier field, would be a grass-based turf. Yeah.
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, and good morning, welcome.
Morning.
Do you see that the timing is a bit of a risk here as well? Because if we align it with the extension to the stadium, which we've pushed back 2 years, we're waiting quite a wee while for this development to happen, and things could evolve within the clubs in that time frame. So I suppose I'm asking, would your wish be for some form of communication to start happening sooner?
Yeah, my wish is for conversations to start happening with partners and users of the facility, the entire facility, and that includes your indoor sports as well, to be able to start that, because I do believe that there are members of the community that would partner with us, with the sports, with the council, to be able to get this development underway sooner rather than later.
Cool. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the
And,
opportunity. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, I'm sure we will. Thank you. And next up, we have Mark and Mike on cricket. Welcome, gentlemen. If you just push the button on the right-hand side, that's it. The floor is yours.
Good morning, thank you. We thank you for the opportunity to speak to the submission. Mark is the CEO of Mid Canterbury Cricket. I'm Mike Southby. I'm a former chairman, secretary, treasurer, manager, groundsman, everything. Current life member currently. Our submission is primarily based, as you would have read, on the fact that there was no mention in the long-term plan of cricket. And at the time that we put the submission in, we were involved, I'm involved, along with a couple of councillors here. There was some uncertainty around the future of the Ashburton, the Oval Pavilion, and the status of that, and where that was going to go. And our primary reason for making the submission and bringing the presentation here is just to make sure or ensure that while we're fully supportive of the proposal and I think the community sport hub is great, that we're at least part of the conversation in terms of the consultation and things. And that may mean that there is no change, there is no cricket down there for whatever reasons, that the layout doesn't fit or whatever happens, resolution gets a satisfactory resolution comes around the Oval and the Pavilion and the things that are happening there, but we still just don't want to miss out on that opportunity to be involved in any discussions and consultations around that. And that's primarily the reason here, but fully supportive of the principle and of the sports hub, and as it occurs in a lot of places around the country, it seems to be the way forward and the model that works pretty successfully around a number of other places, and we would again fully support that and realise that the members sitting around here have competing interests for the ratepayers' dollars, but be great if it could happen sooner rather than later, I guess.
Great. Thanks, Mike. So, sorry. Did you want to say something?
No, I think Mike's covered it pretty well. I mean, there's been changes since I put the submission in, obviously around the pavilion. There's new things possibly happening with that, which looks a bit more positive. I think it was more, as long as we're in any conversations, there's a snowball effect on everything. It might not be directly whether we're there, but it's where the kids in the community go and different things like that. It has an ongoing effect at different levels, and as long as we're involved somewhere in the conversation, as Mike said, we're pretty happy to work with everyone.
So, do you see your home for cricket being in the Domain, in the Oval, and in the Walnut Avenue area? Eventually, is that? Are you settled there? Is that your wish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Simply.
Thank you.
Ideally, it would still be the Oval, but that may not work out. But that's the process that we're currently going through. But the Domain, I guess, yes, because there would still have to be, if there was space and say the main ground moved down to the EA Network Centre, there would still be cricket on the Domain because there would only be space for one down there. So there would still be, the Domain currently has 6. Oh, more than 6. 7. Which particularly with juniors, Saturday mornings and early Saturday afternoons, often there's, 5 or 6 of those being used. So there isn't room. However, it's configured down there. That's right. For it all to move there. So I would suspect that yes, the primary home would still remain on the Domain. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Cameron.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for your submission. We heard from the previous submitter that the survey that the council undertook a couple of years ago, looking at sport participation, did not reflect what was actually happening. Can you tell me what is happening to cricket sports engagement in our community? Do we have more cricket players, fewer cricket players? Are they about the same ages, senior cricket teams, etc.?
At junior and youth level, we're actually very strong now in youth. It's sort of, we've got the juniors going again, and they vary by 1 or 2 teams a year, depending on, sometimes it's the school year. I know this year we got to a lot of schools, and then we had a festival on the beginners that you're trying to bring into cricket. So we had 248 children there for that festival all on one day, and obviously don't get them all, but yeah, quite a few come through, and some of our junior programs are quite good. At youth now, we're up to 5 teams, with Ashburton College never had 2 year 9 and 10 teams apparently, but we have now, and we've got girls starting to come through as well, which is obviously a big push to try and get those going. Some of them are Methven, but obviously because of numbers they combine. But at junior and youth, I think, which is the development and the activity, we're actually quite strong, and the forecast's quite good too. Some of the reporting now we can actually, I've actually been able to go to every year 8 person and see if they're going to school in Mid Canterbury or not when they go to high school, and have an idea of what we've got coming.
Yeah.
Adult level, it's changing. It doesn't probably matter what sport, to be fair.
I think it's that same challenge that a lot of sports face. The traditional from junior to youth drop off when people go to secondary school, and there's been a huge effort gone into that area, and then there's the big drop off at the end of secondary school, which and suffers all sports, and that's an area that I think, to be fair, cricket and New Zealand cricket and everyone is struggling, and we've typically followed the models that Australia have developed in junior and youth, and they've flowed them through New Zealand, and that has worked in them, but they don't have a solution for that youth drop-off one either. So, which I think is, common to a lot of sports.
And also, if I just refer to the previous submitter, she would like to see the fields, the field development move forward. Do you have a view on that in the long-term plan? The development of the field aspect?
Personally, I'd like to see the whole development move forward. From a cricket perspective, I guess that's a little bit of a moot point, as I said before. We're probably not going to be there, but we just want to still be part of any discussions or consultation around the process that happens. But I think, I would like to see it move forward.
Do you think your clubs would, sorry to overtalk you, mate, do you think that your clubs would support financially that direction?
It's an interesting one, because if you were going down that way, I believe, because we've had to change a lot of things, a lot of the stuff's played midweek now for the same reasons. If you've got lights at the ground, especially for juniors, you've got the opportunity to play at night and not affected by the weather. And in many cases, some of those juniors don't even play with hard cricket balls, they're playing with softer ones, so you're not damaging grounds. It's not quite the same. And I think sometimes that's more about probably a user pays in that situation if you're running a festival, as opposed to the whole clubs. To be honest, some of the clubs are battling a bit. Some are quite good. Schools are not too bad, but
The local cricket clubs are probably different to the rugby clubs in that most of them don't own their own facilities.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And grounds. So.
Thank you.
One more quick question, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for your submission. We hear sometimes, quite often, there's nothing for kids to do in this town, and I've had two submitters here this morning who have said exactly the opposite of that. There's plenty of things for the kids to do in this town, and I applaud you for that. Just looking at the fields we have on our plan, there's a premier field and a community field, which rugby and soccer Does cricket fit on there?
It would, probably would without the embankment in the middle. That would be where the wicket block could go. Again, that would, if it became the premier cricket ground, but again, that would create an issue where if half the field was artificial and half of it was, if one was artificial and one was grass, that wouldn't work. So
we'd need a rethink if cricket was to go there.
Yeah,
what we've proposed. Yeah.
And again, you know, we realise that it in terms of the space and things there, it's probably not really that practical. Ideally, it would be fantastic if it was there. That, you know, you had your premier football code field there, premier cricket, all with one combined changing lounge, you know, facility. So it was all together, but. You know, we realise that that's probably not always possible, and
just need to rethink about things.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a very quick question. Good morning. What support do you get now from the council having cricket at the Domain? Are they mowing the grounds for you, or do you do that?
Mow the outfields.
There's all the outfields, yep. We look after the blocks, the grass blocks and things ourselves, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike and Mark, for coming along and presenting to us today. This fellow again. Oh, I thought we'd finished. Sorry.
That must be
quick question.
Must be a bad spot here. Good morning, gentlemen. You're playing in the Domain at the moment, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good, nice area. But with the facilities there, who's looked after? Who looks after them? Is it council's job, or should it be the clubs?
What do you mean by the facilities?
Well, if you look at the Domain,
yeah,
the cricket pitch. Now there's a building there, and I presume that is from the cricket. Is that correct, or used by the cricket?
The building or the buildings are owned by trusts in various states of. The word comes to mind, abandonment, but that's probably not the right word. Councillor Ellis is involved, will be able to tell you, and Councillor Cameron. So the buildings are owned by the trust. The sporting bodies that use them pay a rent to the trust, and those sporting bodies and the council are members of the trust. And that's the process that is currently being worked through with both the Walnut Air Pavilion and the Oval Pavilion.
I understand that, but do you have, are you quite happy to put financial, money into it to be there?
Yeah.
Like if I play a sport and I pay for certain things, are you quite happy to pay, not the whole thing, but part of it, for the facilities?
Well, you have to, there's a cost to everything, so yes, you have to pay, but I guess the hard thing or the difficult thing is finding a level of support and commitment that's sustainable for everybody, for the council that's providing it and for the organisation that's paying for it. You know, there's a balancing act there. We're a relatively small organisation, certainly do not have anywhere like the member numbers and things like that rugby do, and I guess one of the biggest differences there is that the rugby clubs, and maybe that's because they have grounds in a separate club rooms, they get a lot more people and a lot of parents. If cricket played on the Domain, people come, and on Saturdays, particularly with juniors, you do see a lot of parents in that there, but then it's games finished, gone. And some of it because it's morning and afternoon and different times and all that as well.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mike, for coming along and presenting for us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Peter Oldham. Page number 44. Morning, Peter. You have 5 minutes to have a chat to us, and then we'll ask any questions.
Thank you.
Well, Mr Mayor and councillors, thank you for the opportunity to come along. I'm the current chairman of the Ashburton Range Users Association. It is something that's by delegation, not by ability, so I find myself here. We've primarily come to this commission to voice our concerns at being pushed out or squeezed out from a rifle range that's been there since the 1800s. So the current membership is the Ashburton District Rifle Club, the Ashburton Deerstalkers, Outdoor Small Bore Club, and a Gun Club, which is used for access, and the Retired Deerstalkers Club. South Canterbury Small Arms, Antique Arms Rifle Club also use the facilities from time to time. As I said, the range has been there since the 1800s, and we've upgraded it at different times. The area is Crown Reserve, owned by the government, but administered through DOC, ECAN and the Ashburton District Council, of which we've had advice from the time on the building of the new range and the bullet facilities or catching facilities at the back of it. We have spent roughly, or the thick end of $150,000 to set up the present danger safe range that we have. It's the only one in the South Island, of which no monies was coming from council or outside really facilities. We've used that ourselves and forfeited and gone into debt and paying it off. The range has been inspected by the clubs and range inspectors, Donald Carmichael, and there is no issues. We have it. There has been no certificate of compliance issued yet, but then I understand there's not many done from New Zealand because it's done by the New Zealand Police, and the man that can do it is a busy man, the Chief of Police at the present time. But we're told there's nothing wrong, that we'll get it. The range is operated by Range Safety Officer, who has a key, and also range officers which control the range while people are there. Being a danger safe range, it means that the target area is the only thing that can be hit. Otherwise, anything outside that 1.8 square of each target is not a misfire, but an exception and must be recorded. Why has it done that? Because the rifle is set on the shoulder before the bolt is closed. We have baffles and things on the ground that stop ricochets, and there is no semi-automatic firearms used on that range, other than small bore, a 22, which is single loaded instead of being used in the semi-auto range. We appreciate the people. We only anticipate, or people that, sorry, I'll use this again. It is only appropriate that people have sighting in and shooting facilities that are controlled in a safe environment and not in the riverbeds and paddocks and things as been done in the past. We allow other clubs to use parts of the range area. The car club do their parking there, and Plains Rotary store straw on another part of it. We don't oppose other sporting organisations. In fact, we encourage them in places. We have a walking track and cycle track up the river side of the thing, which we frequently get people start climbing the fence and coming in and tell us that you can't come in here, can't shoot because we're walking up here. They can't read the signs that are on the outside of the fence to say that it is a range and do not enter. We've been at the finish of a shoot to find people walking around the berm area asking why it's there, or why are the targets not on these pieces. It's rather concerning, and it creates a stop. We've had police stop us once because somebody had a projectile land at their feet in a riverbed, only to find the range wasn't open until 12:30, and this happened at 11:30 in the morning. We've great concerns about the sporting facilities being able to operate alongside a long-standing range. People have perceptions that shooting is not safe. Example, the noise, and it's off-putting at times. I live up in Ellington, and I can hear sometimes the pistol club going on in Easterley. I can hear the small bore, the big bore. and gun club all going at different times. It doesn't concern me because I'm used to that sort of thing, perhaps. We'd need, if this proposal goes ahead, we would need some form of barrier of protection to avoid spectators, players hearing or seeing shooters in action while in their chosen fields. The area of the range has been regarded as a dumping ground for years, and it will take time to have the area respectable and tidy again. We spray gorse and broom when we can, and we've cleared approximately 90 tonne of agriculture plastic that's been left on our hands. We also have a pile of soil left over from the EA centre that we're working towards a solution so we can get the boundary fence erected along that boundary again. We need to have a look to see what's actually the site is going to look like and consider and so that it can consider our situation before anything planned goes ahead. And we'd like to see what the timetable is on when and where these proposals will be made. There's my submission, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Peter.
Open to questions.
Questions? Councillor Brown.
You've got it.
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Morning, Councillor Brown.
Well, you can say later. We know each other. The land you're using, is it your land or is it DOC land?
It is it's Crown Reserve, owned by the government
Okay.
and administered by DOC. We have the same discussion with DOC.
Okay. Yeah.
The lady at Chris Colfer at Geraldine is very adamant that she owns it. But
Yeah.
Crown Land say something, or Lynn say something different.
Another question, if I can. Yes, Chair. Can a range work next to a sport field? Can you do that safe enough?
But it's classed as a danger-safe range, so the projectiles have got to be caught and captured. So
So you basically could be staying where you are and the fields could be next to it? Or is that just not possible?
that's what we'd like to know about.
Okay.
The police say it's fine where it is and what's going on. It's what we're concerned about is getting crowded out or pushed out by, we use the example of not many people buy a section in town, then have a listen to see whether the trains are running past, there's trucks going through, or somebody shooting, or the birds are scaring, deer are roaring, or something like that before they build. They go, Ginny, go ahead and build, and then turn around and complain. And we don't want this to happen with the council's new proposal.
Okay, so you really want to be part with what's going to happen or how it's going to be done. Is that correct? You want to be part of it to make sure that if we're going through with the plan, you want to be part of that to make sure that it is safe for all
certainly.
parties. Okay.
We don't want to scare people or set up, but having been there, we just feel we've been slowly pushed out.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Hi, Peter. On the map, whereabouts is your range currently? Is it around the number 24, sort of the proposed solar farm site, or I'm just trying to visualise exactly where it is?
The range operates up the side of Robinson Street, sorry. And there is a fence, a security fence that runs straight up there towards. I thought one of your pictures on this plan I had showed that, but.
Oh, that's okay. How many users? You mentioned the clubs that use the facility. Do you know roughly how many individual users that equates to?
Well, there's approximately 40 in the Ashburton district range. There's about 50 in Ashburton deerstalkers. I think there's 12 in the small bore. I'm not sure about the gun club, what their population is, and there's 100 in Rikaya deerstalkers.
Okay, and final question, is there any other obvious locations for your range, or is that something that the clubs haven't even considered?
It has been considered in the past, but has come to a halt with Environment Court ruling that it's not or wasn't possible where the new place site was. Having spent that sort of money on where we've got, we'd prefer to stay where we are.
Thanks, Pat.
One final question, Mayor Brown.
Yep, thanks Peter for your submission. That other site was down at Ocean Farm, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. Just a couple of questions. So, following on from Councillor Hooper, how far would your field be from the edge of, say, our sports fields if we built them, metres wise, approximately?
It's approximately twice the width of our range at the present time, or what we use at field class as the range.
A couple hundred metres, or?
No, it won't be 100 metres, I don't think.
Won't be 100 metres,
No.
okay. No, that's fine. And how big is the area that you have there?
There's 22 hectares in total.
Good. And the time of when you do the shooting, do you any time, or do you have set times, like Saturday or?
Generally, there's no shooting at night time. It's all daylight shooting.
Yeah.
And Sunday is usually the NRA are shooting on Sunday. Deer stalkers will shoot on the first Thursday and the first Wednesday, last Thursday and the first Thursday of the month, plus other competition shoots that may come in on a Saturday and things like that, depends on what comes in. So we have Wilkinson shoot, we have three different shoots that deer stalkers run, plus the NRA can run anything from Melbourne or Christchurch in the competition as well.
So it is quite well used?
Yes, I think it's quite
Very well used by different clubs here. So no night time, but a lot of all daytime shooting?
Yes, it's all daytime
Could
shooting.
be any time during the week?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
It also used if a range officer is available to go and sight in firearms and things like that before people go hunting and things like that as well.
Okay.
Good. There is some criticism that it's a closed shop, but to be a closed shop, it's got to be a danger-safe range.
Yeah.
And that's the way we want it.
Great. Thanks for that.
One final question,
Thank
please.
you. Very quick question. Good morning. I've got the map up
Thank you.
on here, just having a wee look. But are you just your area is all fenced with just sort of signs saying rifle range? No, can't enter. It's not deer fenced or anything like that.
Yes, the only piece that's not fenced is the triangle that runs back down where if you can see on the right-hand side, runs along the edge of Bailey's and don't know who another police from Timaru and part of what the scrap man's got there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's surveyed all ready to go, but I wanted to cut a hole through the pile of soil so that we can see the side and go fence, but that apparently is not appropriate in case somebody falls down it.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your submission today. We'll have the rest of the day doing our deliberations on it, and you'll hear from everyone later on, maybe later in the month. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Todd. Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Bruce. Morning, Mr. Bruce.
Good morning.
We've got
I hope I
5
don't crash and burn the same as I did a few days ago.
And we'll give you another 5 minutes to talk to us again.
Well, look, I don't want to make this in a harangue, and I don't want to sound insulting, but one of the points that I made last time I was in, that smart people without wisdom are fools. I'm sorry to say I regard you all as smart people. With my age of over 80 and a lot of experience in many different fields, I see many things that I'm worried about. Some of them are really serious. Now, I can remember the 1945 flood that took out the Ashburton bridges. That's a long time ago. And today, there's a commemoration of the D-Day landings. That happened when I was a little kid, and I've followed it. And weapons have been one of my many hobbies, and I used the rifle range in Ashburton. At the Ashburton High School, they used to have a rifle range there for over 50 years with no trouble whatsoever. No trouble. And in Switzerland, one of the most well-armed countries in the world, they have no trouble, and they have rifle ranges. Some of the pictures I've seen on the YouTube are quite scary to me, but they've got cars going past, and with the proper controls, they have no trouble. So please don't throw out the rifle, people. And that range was put in a long time ago. So how many of you know today that we're in a different world than we were a few years ago? Do any of you realise that right now ray guns are being used in the world? Laser guns. If you don't believe me, look it up on Wikipedia, which I have little faith in, but my children, university educators, swear by it. But the holes in Wikipedia are blindingly obvious. But the Israelis have a thing they call the Iron Beam, which is knocking down satellites. It's capable of knocking down satellites. The development is. But it's actually in use today. Now, my main hobby in life now, as I've been afflicted with old age, is brain science and the things that we can do with an understanding of how our brain works. In our education system in New Zealand, we have dropped to 40-something on a world scale when we used to be number 8. Now, there's obvious reasons for this. Now, the reasons for some of the things, I hope I'm not sounding an incoherent harangue. You've got no post box. Democratically, the submissions ended on Sunday night at 12 o'clock because of my bad management and possibly being let down a little bit by my reliable children. I didn't put in the submission, so I had to drive down at 10 or 11 o'clock on Sunday night to put my submission in. There was no post box, so I stuck it to the glass doors with a bit of silage tape. And your staff managed to get through, and I saw it on the computer, which I'm not an expert at, I'd ask her later. But why haven't you got a post box? You've got a door out there which cost many thousands, wonderful thing, opens and shuts for us, and a level playing field so that a maniac can drive a car through it. Now, we have maniacs in our world today. That's why I suggest your post box is not in the building. They might put some oily rags in it. So, if we have the flood that we have seen in the past, and it breaks out above Ashburton, and if any of you don't believe it's going to break out, I can show you the evidence. Go up to Winchmore and see how the river is plugged, utterly plugged. Now, if it breaks out, it's going to come through your doors. You're nice and low, and it's nice to walk in here with a walking stick and not stumble like I did when I was walking out. But I think the building could have been a bit higher. And while I'm criticising the building, which is magnificent, you've got a brick building stuck in there like a boil on a bum. Same thing that my grandfather did when he built a house in Christchurch. When we wrecked it some time ago, I was amazed to find it still there. It had been built over top of an old house. And some of the old houses still had shingles on it. Surprised me, we didn't know it existed until it was being wrecked. So, that brick building you've got down there, is it put together with Portland cement or with lime mortar? Now, the centre of Christchurch fell down because it was lime mortar, the same way as the Romans put chimneys together, and then Portland cement came along. But lime mortar crumbles, so the centre of Christchurch fell down. That was Mr. Brownlee, was it? Talking about the old dungers. Well, he was right to some extent. Is our building down here put together with Portland cement or with lime mortar? I wonder. And would a facade have been just as good? It does look really odd. And I'm a historical person. I can lecture on historical things for a long, long time. But the main reason I want to get through to you folk, and I think you're all smart people, is to look more closely at history for some of the things that are affecting us. Now, this flood that I predict will come, it's going to come anyway, it's a question of when, up along the hills, I'm obsessed, and I've spoken to you several times on this, once 4 years ago, and what I actually predicted at a certain spot in Staveley actually came to pass. The road was breached last year, and the irrigation ditch was damaged last year because of the infantile neglect of that particular road, creek, and 2 creeks actually, absolutely infantile neglect. a stream comes down, turns at a right angle when it's supposed to be going straight ahead, attacks the build-up of the road, bounces off there after scouring it away, comes back to join the other stream, and then those two streams united attack the siphon. And it has been damaged. But being a business operation, they've shot in there with concrete and fixed the problem. But I'm not sure whose problem it is, because that whole thing is caused by failing to clear out in front of the second bridge that I talk about. And I can show you the photographs if you look it up on the Courier some years ago. Now that bridge there, which has been sound for 40 years, the inadequate bridge there before 40 years, and I was there then, used to blow out at least once a year. It's been sound for a year. And the reason for putting the Cox Road through Rutherford's Road, you can look at the map and find it out, was to provide an emergency for the main Highway 72. Yeah, right. The emergency was knocked out through neglect. It's a good idea, but it didn't survive. Now this is where I say the wisdom's coming in.
Just conscious of time, Mr. Bruce, if you can just start wrapping things up. I'm just conscious of time.
Okay. I'm told I had to be here because a couple of other people have dropped out. I'm silly enough to believe I might have cribbed a bit of extra time. It's the same feeling I had when I tried to put my submission in a non-existent postbox. Now these pictures here show what is possible up in our hills. And that's a bridge that was washed out some years ago. Once more again, and here's a much older picture showing a huge volume of water. We expect a huge volume of water coming from the hinterland. The time to see the Rakaia River in full flood is in the middle of February. After 3 or 4 days of high nor'west, you'll find the Rakaia River as a banker, and we've got bright sunshine here. But when we get rain against the hills, we get a sudden downpour. And I can show you pictures here of some months ago, over 2 months ago now, when I drove from Staveley to the Rakaia, and there was hardly a half mile of road that wasn't covered with water. And it didn't come from the hinterland. It came from the right weather conditions in a little over an hour and a half. Now, we've got to take reasonable cognizance of what's going on, and we've got to clear our rivers, or they'll come to visit us. I think that's the thing I could say, but I just want to talk about I was a keen, what they called in those days, skin diver. I had the 4th aqualung in the Canterbury area. Kelly Tarleton, Wade Doak, they were all friends of mine, we swam together. But you're going to possibly install a water slide. For heaven's sake, council shouldn't be in the business of amusement. It should be in the business of education and doing wise things. I'm all for the pool, wonderful. I found out I had asthma late in my 40s when I walked through the irrigation ditch tunnel which was open recently, and I went down with a pulmonary complaint, and I found I had asthma. But it was caught with the bugs in walking through the tunnel up there. Some of you, I'm sure, have done it, which is the same disease some miners get. That was improved my faith in the doctors no end. But we need to do wise things. And if the pool complex is going to develop people, because of my swimming, asthma never troubled me until that attack late in life, that's what we want, healthy kids. But we don't want an amusement, a water slide, for heaven's sake. We need to spend our money wisely. So I think the diatribe should end now. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce.
And I still ask you, why haven't you got a post box?
Thank you. Do we have any questions? All done. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
So that brings those people who wish to talk to us to a close. And now we go to deliberations. What do you want to do? Cup of tea? Okay. We'll have a cup of tea first. deliberations for the EA NC Centre. And at this stage, I'll hand over to our team to take us through the deliberations. Thanks, Mark.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, we have had some speakers in person. We've got submissions and themes that we're going to run through, I guess, for this next portion. And as officers, we're happy to answer any questions or, yeah, that you may have, and we'll go from there. So, hand over to Mark.
Okay, so we'll just work through the PowerPoint as it stands. So obviously that's the purpose of today. And we'll sort of work through the consultation feedback that's been received. So the document that you want to be looking at is the summary of feedback on Stella. That's and the page numbers are referenced in this presentation. So making those assumptions that you've had a chance to read through everything. And in terms of the feedback, so I guess the first question was around people's view of the master plan document, and there was a clear majority obviously that supported the plan over the 60, 70 odd submissions I think we received. In terms of the sort of main reasons why they were supported, the left-hand column sort of highlights the key reasons for why people thought the plan was a good idea, and the right-hand column just gives a bit of an overview of some of the concerns that people raised as they were working through. So in terms of that, I guess, are there any questions, comments? So in terms of the summary of feedback, you're looking at pages 5 to 12, so it might be worth sort of going through that page by page and raising any questions as we work through.
Any councillors have any comments? Oh, sorry.
Just a question. So, some of the submissions on the LTP regarding the stadium extension, that's come into the summary document as well?
Yes,
Yes,
yep,
it
that's
has.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, carry on.
So that's the question that we're asking in relation to that feedback, but you may want to answer that a bit further down the track.
Mm-hmm. Just one question on the master plan. Of the plan we've got, and it's got those sports fields and things on there, how much land have we got left undeveloped up there?
If you look at the master plan drawings, that is using every square centimetre possibly that we've got. There is no further land beyond the eastern boundary. So where it says rural area, to the right of the community field, that is not our land. So we're literally using the full footprint. It is... in the land I just followed up with a question today. It is business zone D, I believe. 1 moment.
15's the existing shed, is it?
Business D, yes. 15's the existing shed.
I thought when we first developed the 10 or whatever years ago, more than that, 15 years ago, we purchased more land. I think it was about 7 hectares. So that is using all that 7 hectares.
It's phenomenally surprising how little you can actually, when you're standing there and it's undeveloped, you think, well, there's so much land. But when you actually put the requirements of spaces and field size plus runoff plus facilities associated with sports, plus car parking, which you clearly need, there isn't actually as much space as you think. There's the embankment that kind of sort of encloses the footprint a little, but as you can see, we kind of highlighted on number 25 that area is currently sort of, I'm going to say, Dockland Crown derived, and going through a process to purchase that would sort of square up the piece of the size of land that we have, and potentially would allow for different configuration. The fields and the turfs on the angles they are, which may kind of look a little bit funny, is actually the right direction for sport. So the fields are angled correctly, but you would easily do something differently. If you had line 25, I suspect you would have the car parking sort of, moved out from the premier turf more to the top left in that area, so that you didn't have an L shape, for example, and you could use something different or move the other field down. So
it's used up all the existing land that we own?
Correct.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Liz.
Thank you. It's now a good time to bring up the submission from the range users. So you sent through a map of where the range was, and there seemed to be quite a sort of section in between the fields and the range. Is it going to work having the sports fields beside the ranges? Was that, I suppose, discussed or talked about when the plan was being put together?
Through the chair, clearly we know that the range has been there for a long number of years, and would still continue to like to be there. The use of our land, being council's land, doesn't curtail the range. I interpreted from the comments this morning that they didn't want it to, encroach or over time, become take over their bit of land. But we literally can't. Do you know what I mean? We don't own their land. They've got a commitment with DOC for a long-term lease. The portion of 25 that we sort of have identified as a possibility doesn't impact them at all. If we were to sort of square up the land that we have as part of the master plan. And he also referred to the sort of amount of spoil that was left on site following the EA build, and we've talked about that, and that could easily be used as part of to tidy it up, more buffer zones or an embankment, or to use it in a better way, because it's currently just spoil left on site, to find a happy medium. I'll just ask Richard, in terms of the impact of noise and clearly being at the facility now, what he sees as a normal week.
Yeah, through the chair, to be fair, we don't even know that the rifle range or the gun range users are there. We know that they're there in terms of a position, but we never hear anything from them when they're there undertaking their sport. So Mark's just popped the map up there if it helps everybody to understand. The brown portion moving out towards the kind of top left corner is the gun range, and the blue line around the middle of the screen is where the land that we're talking around the master plan is. So there is an obvious separation in between the two.
So just looking at that map, that where your arrow is now, where the that green paddock is, that's still Crown land. The gun range or the range is only from
Yes.
that sort of road over. Yeah.
Correct. Everything from that blue line in the middle of the screen towards the next blue line on the left is Crown land.
I was just going to ask, did we consult with the rifle range before we drew up all these plans, or we just went and did our plans without talking to them first? Because that is a concern. It is a dangerous sport, and thinking we put walkways up along the river trails and stuff, and to do public good, whether we should be looking at putting some embankments around it to protect them and the public in the future. But did we consult with them or not? Or
Through the chair, there was no specific consultation with them about the plan. And the rationale for that is council has purchased this land over previous years to use it, and as a purchaser of property you're entitled to use it as long as it fits within the district plan, and obviously you've got the financial commitments and ability to use it and pay for it. So yes, they have been there a long time. We don't believe there is concerns that over time we would encroach or take their rifle range away from them. But I can't foresee, long term into the future beyond all of our lives. So, that's a challenge. But likewise, we have this land. It would be unwise to purchase it and never use it for the purpose that it was intended to purchase for the community as well.
Yeah, we need to be good neighbours as well.
Russell. Thank you, and I would like to point out I don't believe the gun range is unsafe. They're a police-approved gun range and wouldn't get that if they were unsafe. My question is, left-hand corner of the swimming pool complex there's that section that looks like it's got a whole lot of, I think it's scrap metal and things on. That one there, yes. Has any consideration been given to finding out the owner of that and maybe making an approach, because that could be a cheaper way of getting another access point into the stadium, because we have looked at going up Robinson Street and along the back of those, which was a very expensive option. That one's got a road leading straight into it and goes straight into the stadium complex. Just as part of the long-term vision.
Through the chair, far from an expert in property matters, but I understand McNally Street, which is the circular one, is actually a private right-of-way, so creating a road entrance that is a public entrance through a private right-of-way may be a challenge. You may have to confer to people smarter than me on that, but that's my understanding from conversation.
Richard? So I've looked through the submissions and I see this cricket is applied and they've sort of suggested they want to stay in the domain. Hockey is applied, and as you've expressed, they've got it's a mechanism how long their turf lasts. Rugby is replied. Has football put anything? Because obviously football's the one that's, if you have a field, a premier football field is sort of thing. So have they put forward their plans or anything?
Without diving completely into the submissions right now, through the LTP there was some submissions from football. I believe the submitter may have been Amy Patterson on behalf of football, expressing views around football and where the future is of football in our district. So it would probably be wise to refer to those. Also, through the chair, just to answer the Mayor's question, Mark was trying to draw a yellow line distance across there. It's around 350 to 380 metres from the blue line to the next blue line.
Thanks, Mark. Oh, sorry, Phil.
Thank you. Biking down the river track, sometimes you hear the shooting going on, and I mean it's there in your mind, and you're thinking, oh geez, but you realise that it is a safe sport and well contained, and yeah, I have comfort around that, and I'm sure spectators and players using the facility in the future will have similar comfort.
Thanks, Mark.
So our next question was around whether there was anything that people thought had been missed as part of the development of the master plan. So this was the overall result that came through on that. Was sort of half and half in terms of some of the areas that were covered. This slide just gives a bit of an overview of what people perceived could be included as part of the plan. Other options, and that's all covered on slide page 14 to 18 of the summary of submissions.
Just asking, the last plan we had, we said when we did the extension we were going to include within that a climbing wall climb because we couldn't put it in on the courts we have there now. Can we, and people are asking for it to go back in, it is a you book in and you pay and stuff, and we said we'd put it back in a new plan and it's not featured. Can we put it back in for future decisions on it when we think about extending it out? Because it would go in between the courts and the new entryway. We talked about that in the last plan we had.
Through the chair, in the stadium extension, the larger, more expensive options included 3 courts. There was also an area designated for, I think we called it leisure play of some description, which would enable, or could enable, I guess, a climbing component. The challenge with climbing, and there's, like, we've bandied around lots and lots of ideas. If it's the requirement to have harnesses, there's a large staffing component, so it's not a cheap sport or activity to run. And clearly there's some hazards involved with it, which need to be mitigated with training and all that sort of stuff. Bouldering is another option that doesn't have quite the staff component, but it requires sort of more space and sort of interesting shapes and things. So, and yeah, we've also, I've seen recently overseas, which was quite cool, and it was mentioned in one of the feedback, to use like the hydroslide tower as the outdoor sort of climbing thing, because you've got a large vertical space that can have it in its external. So clearly you're impacted by the weather there, but is that a better use of space? So we'd love to have some sort of climbing offering within the master plan and within the stadium or outside of the stadium. We've just got to enable it, and using it in the current footprint of the current stadium is very challenging and will be detrimental to what we're already achieving. So we don't believe that that's the right thing to do. But if there was an extension to a stadium as it is planned, we do think that should be considered or thought about seriously to try and see what the solution is. The barn, or the reference that we call the barn down at EA now, which has multiple uses and multiple desires, sort of short-term and long-term, but that's kind of quite an interesting space with very interesting shaped sort of structure, and potentially that could become something of bouldering or something. So we're open to ideas, but we just don't want it to be at the detriment of another sport that has high participation rates.
I'd like to see it mentioned in there, but then it can be progressed, whether it's in the barn or in our extension as it originally was, because everyone keeps going on, kids need teenagers, there's nothing here for them, and I know that the Clip and Climb in Christchurch, you book in there, there's 2 people in there, and I think we need to give people, young ones, the opportunity, because they have a lot of competitions with adults and kids, and I think just naming it in the plan, it enables us to think about it down the line, and people have keep coming back and asking for it. So I think just putting the word in there would kind of help.
Liz.
Thank you. I just wanted to talk about the mini golf. So we've put some money aside for the mini golf down there. Is that spot big enough to have the 9-hole mini golf? Is that going to be the right spot for it? Because now's kind of the time, I suppose, that we talk about where that can go. And the sand, I'm not going to call it a pit, sand court next to it, when was that scheduled to go in?
Through the chair, so first question on mini golf, I believe the direction I've received from council is to investigate the feasibility of a mini golf course, and up to that value of 350,000-400,000. We're at this point trying to find a suitable person to give us guidance and design around that. So to accurately answer your question on space, would require finding that designer. However, the person who drew this believes it is the right size for a mini golf course. The second question on the sand court, we've been working through the kind of preliminary design on that. However, it's likely to come through council as a carryover request due to a what's the right word? Restriction on available sand at this point, which Hamish laughed at me when I suggested this, but the contractors have actually indicated that the suitable sand for a sand court is not currently available, and they're trying to source it, so it's not going to be done in this financial year like it was originally planned, and it'll come to council as a carryover request.
Yeah, okay, that's good, because I'm just wondering if we got the design back for the mini golf and it ended up being bigger, it would be a shame to put that sand court in first and then we need it to all tie in, I guess.
Through the chair, potentially one of the byproducts of delaying it is being able to talk about the two in synergy of each other.
Thank you.
Caroline.
We had 3 submissions on a running track, and I do know we've got a running track in the domain, in the Botanic Gardens, but a running track would seem to me to be quite an easy add around the outside. We don't have a running track, to the best of my knowledge, in the plan. What is the likelihood of putting one in, and is that possible, and is there any reason to put one in?
Through the chair, we didn't consider a running track due to there being the one in the oval in the domain, yes. And participation in athletics is kind of it is a growing sport, but it's not a massive sport, so adding a second one could undo the one that's in the domain, and it would also completely change the layout of how the master plan works. If you think of a circular thing then going around square boxes, it could encroach on how the layout has worked here. It's not to say it's not possible, but you do have a running track in the domain at this point in time.
Yeah, there is, and there's also long jump field. There's like a whole athletics.
Correct. There's a whole athletics set up in the oval.
The other question I'd like to ask, we had one, I only saw one, there's probably more than one, submitter who says we don't need, I think it was Mr. Mitchell, we don't need a playground in the EA Networks plan. Do we have a costings, and what year is the playground?
The plan highlights spaces as opposed to costs, and playgrounds are well more expensive than anyone would ever think.
Unbelievably, yeah.
And I guess the purpose of doing that was to provide that sort of low-key recreational aspect, so that if there were parents, families with sort of mixed age children, that one could be playing on the rugby field and a child could be enjoying the playground. So they're very much hand in hand. We wouldn't be putting in a playground in year 2 in the sports field in year 10, or it would be something joined together. So it was just really an allocation of space as opposed to a commitment that a playground would be there.
And where on that picture, please, Sarah, through the chair, is the playground? Is it down there by the sand court?
There's 2.
Yeah, there's 2. There's one that's right next to the outdoor courts, top left of the
23.
map, and then one that's right next to the community field. They're kind of pinky coloured circles there.
Oh, yes, yeah, I see that.
Just to add on to Sarah's comment, the playgrounds we regularly see now with the stadium, one kid playing netball and the other children are at a loss. There's things that they're trying to find to do, and if they don't have things to do, they loiter around in change rooms or corridors or out in the car park, those kind of things. So the add-on of things like playgrounds is to try and help mitigate some of those.
Often the playgrounds are for very young children that require parental supervision, and if the parents are sort of split between watching one child play netball and perhaps 2 might be unnecessary, but yeah.
And with just the comment on regarding the running track, it was good to hear that feedback. And if we had unlimited budget, we were dreaming and thinking about how we could include some sort of loop that went down through the disc golf course and then connected up and went to the river trail, and it'd be quite a nice thing to have and do. Yes, it's just, I guess, the commitment and where the pots of gold are coming from.
In the concept plan, how many whole mini golf courses?
Through the chair, you meaning the mini golf number 16 is an 18 hole mini golf course.
Yeah. was mentioned before 9, but it's definitely not 9.
The intention at this point would be for a 18 hole. That tends to be the norm of mini golf.
Yep.
Liz?
Thank you. Has there been any discussion with any of the squash clubs about moving their facilities down to EA?
We have been in touch with squash, and because there's some conversations happening in the community about in terms of squash clubs in Ashburton itself. I was a little surprised that there wasn't a submission as part of this in our recent discussions, but possibly they feel like, it's just that's they've got a wee bit more time to sort of consolidate their view. We did talk about how much space, and they weren't, to be honest, even sure of, even if they had, all the money in the world, what their magic wand number in terms of courts was to determine what size of facility they would need or want. So without that sort of guidance, it was really challenging to allocate a space. But yeah, nothing's off the cards, I guess. We're still working with them, and they have some assets that need repair, and they also have sort of population sort of commitments and memberships that they need to work through as well. So yeah.
Thank you. And another question, if that's okay. The outdoor pool area, which we've obviously not doing at the moment. Would you still keep the area without it, with maybe just some temporary car parking or something on it, just in case, and because it's a 30-year plan, just in case down the track another council decided that yes, we need an outdoor pool and we might need a hydro slide as well? Would you keep that area sort of just as a temporary area instead of doing any work on it?
Yes, our intention would be to retain the area that's marked AQ. Whether that was outdoor or whether that was indoor, I actually believe the sizing was larger than just the
Correct.
outdoor
AQ
requirement.
represents an early concept of an aquatics extension, and the AQ actually sits on the overflow car park at the EA Network Centre at the moment, so status quo.
Yeah, got you.
Skate parks. We keep getting asked over and over again about skate parks, and we keep, we've got the one right by the railway line and the highway, and a lot of parents are saying, it's not safe for families and little kids wander. Where in our plans or parks have we got provision for another good-sized skate park like what Methven's got up there going in the future? Do you see it a fit down here or what? Thinking of young families and that in mind. And
Through the chair, skate parks isn't something that fits in our sphere of normal daily thinking, so Tony or Hamish may have a different view on other projects that exist. A skate park potentially could fit into the footprint, absolutely, but it wasn't considered because we have an existing skate park as it is now, so we didn't take it into account at that point.
Yeah.
Just as a comment, as the skate, I was involved with the skate park when it was built where it is, and the idea was that skate parks should be in a visual place. If you put them in domains and things like that, then things can happen that aren't socially acceptable. So that was the reason that it was built where it is. Phil.
Thank you. So how do we move forward from this? Can we go back to the other slide where it had suggestions on things that we may have missed, and do we start putting a line through some of those and saying, okay, look, I think that cricket we can just about put a line through because they seem to be progressing down there, that they're happy at the domain. I think possibly that football's similar. I think tennis are happy where they are. Squash, there's a question mark there. Climbing, well, I've just had a wee look at Clip and Climb, and it's run by the Kind Foundation. One of their sponsors is Christchurch City Council, amongst a whole lot of others. Preschoolers are $16 entry, adults are $22 entry. I don't think that's in our wheelhouse. I think that's a private enterprise thing, and the outdoor running, is there athletics track? From what I understand, athletics are reasonably happy at the oval, and they've got some storage there which they're happy with, and the grass track, and they're more than happy with that space. So I'm just thinking about a way forward from here. Is that an option to start putting some lines through these, or should I turn my light off?
No, through you, Mr. Chair. I think, as I alluded to at the start, although the land kind of appears big and we could do everything, we can't. And we've got some great facilities in the domain. We've got Argyle Park that has been mentioned previously as, potentially if there was investment to make that the home of football and to marry football and softball together with better facilities at Argyle Park so that there wasn't the clash with cricket on the domain. So although we would love a sports hub to have absolutely everything, we'd probably do it poorly if we tried. So it would be best to limit our options in terms of provide what we can well and have a sufficient space allocation for that. It's not to say, and I mean, we've talked about it following the submission process, that community use components, like for example, we're not sure about the use of the cricket nets, but like people enjoy playing casual basketball at the outdoor courts, there could be some community cricket nets, and I mean that's clearly less space required, and there is some capital investment in that, but that could be an option within the area that we've got. So we wouldn't want to rule out, and also football, having a few goals with nets on the back. Again, just casual use sport, some rugby posts so that, people can practice kicking them, down there. All those sort of community components is something that we'd love to include and could include even short term to a lower standard, but have that available for people to get the participation up.
I think the domain's home of cricket, and although the Oval's a wonderful place to play the game, it's from experience incredibly frustrating when in the first over you're in the fielding team and the ball gets hit into the pond and it's stuffed a lot earlier than, and that's totally unfair on one team. So I think it should be developed by the Walnut Avenue Pavilion, and I think if you're standing at that pavilion looking towards the hospital, if cricket, the main ground is to the right where there's plenty of room without trees, and football is developed slightly to the left as their main ground, because I know there'll be goalmouth ripping up issues that would affect cricket, then I'm sure those two sports could stay there happily without a whole lot of capital investment from us. I'll come back.
So in your presentation, Mark, does this come up again, or do we make decisions on areas we want to pursue in sporting areas now? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's whether you want any of those particular areas reflected in the plan as it currently stands or not, as the case may be. So, I mean, obviously these are suggestions that people made. It's not a broad opinion of the community. It's just a range of suggestions that were made through the submissions.
Yep.
And through Mr. Chair, they're not currently in the plan. So it would require council now, as part of this deliberation process, to actively add them. If you don't, you don't have to Hoop's point, I'd look at it perhaps from the other side. You don't have to rule anything out because they're not there. Do you want to add them? Would be the decision that would change the current makeup of the plan.
Okay, Lynette?
I would just like to see the climbing wall concept kept in our plan, because we could lease the space out or partner with somebody else to do it, just like what we're talking about with the hydro slide. And I personally think we need activities for the youth and the older members of the community, and I would like to see that put in there and considered with the extension down the line.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask that what we need to try and do is give effect to council's intent. And so when there is an idea that has support from a councillor, we probably need to test it around the table, because we won't know as officers whether that passionate councillor is the only one who sees it that way, and it's not council's will, or whether or not there is a majority of council who want to see it that way. So if we just need either a show of hands or a vote or an indication or something when we're making a change to the plan to make sure we're really clear that it's council's will, as opposed to the passionate views of only one or two.
Okay. Yep. So we can go through them one by one. Obviously the first one is skate park. No? Okay.
Sorry. No, I'll mine was one of the ones further down, so I'll wait.
Oh, okay.
Liz?
Well, I was going to talk about the dance studio, because I just wanted to know where is that proposed dance studio, or that area that we had in the long-term plan at now that we made the decision for Balmoral Hall to be moved or demolished in 2 years' time.
Through the chair, the multi-use space that could be used for dance is still within the plan and the LTP plan as it stands.
Okay, so we happy to go through these lists here? Okay. So skate park? Sorry, no? Running athletic track? Any support? No. Climbing wall, which I presume is clip and climb.
With regards to the climbing wall, we have heard from Sarah and her team that it would be considered later on if and when we put in the extension or the hydroslide or whatever goes there, and I think that's the best place to leave it. So I don't know. So that will then come to council as a separate project at the time, I'm guessing.
Correct. The space allocation for the 3 courts as it was presented in the LTP design, which is within this plan behind in terms of S3C and S2C. That includes an allocation of space, but it depends how big, how long, everything that you want, and whether the space allocation is sufficient.
But that's been postponed or delayed and considered.
I think a good thing to do is to bring this up, because that project's year 7, I believe, in the next LTP, for example, so that there's firmer direction set, and officers have set sort of more, what does this space actually look like if it was to include climbing, and you might look at that and go, well, there's no point doing that, it's too small, it's too this, or it's going to cost too much in staff, or all those sort of factors come into play, or there might be something else that can take into account.
I agree. So we'll no at the moment. I think that's a consensus.
Yeah. Are we happy to take that off the list at this stage?
No, I'd say leave it on the list.
Yeah.
Where it would actually go, not too sure, as developments happen. Definitely leave it on the list to be discarded or built at a later time.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the list.
Keep it on the list. Okay. Pools, aquatic area suggestions. I think water sports we've got dealt with, haven't we, on the long-term plan? So that's done. Cricket will be...
Excuse me, Tony, question.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Do we, the pools and aquatic area suggestions, well, we've got the pool in the long-term plan at year 5.
It's gone. We've got a stadium extension in year 7.
Years 5 to 7.
Nothing to do with pools.
But it's in the 30-year long-term plan, isn't it, or not?
No, it's not. You took it out.
No, all water sports are out.
There's space allocation in this plan, which is the 30-year plan, for a new pool area, outdoor, indoor, splash deck, or whatever. I guess the desires are closer to the time. So we've got the space allocation, but there's no commitment in the next 10 years for any aquatic improvements.
That was my understanding. Yeah.
So that's pulls aquatic area out.
So from the submissions, just on that through the chair, the main suggestion there was around potential for diving boards, deep pool. That came through the submissions.
So just with your comment, for clarity, are you suggesting that we remove the space allocation for AQ, or you would prefer to earmark it as we have intended to leave it there for the future?
Leave it. Okay.
I would draw everybody's attention to the map, which shows all the different areas. We're talking about areas for the next 30 years. We're not talking about doing it in the next 10. So the aquatic pools area, we're saying leave those areas in the plan so that potentially in 29 and a half years' time, there is a spot allocated. That's what we're talking about. When we said no to the climbing wall, yes, we believe it could be somewhere in the plan. We said cricket, no, we perhaps didn't think it would be there, be better in domain. That's what we're discussing, isn't it? At that high level, not...
Yeah.
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we should leave the pool and have that thinking that it's 30 years.
Okay. More courts? That's it.
I just had a question on. I believe we confuse things by going out with the LTP and this at a similar sort of time and dealing with the LTP first, because there were a lot of people who commented on this who should have commented in there. And I know we transferred some of them around, but I believe it, especially around the swimming pool thing, created a bit of confusion because we're sort of consulting on the same thing in two places almost. And it feels strange doing this immediately after we've done the LTP, because if we decided there was something really good in here, we really, next annual plan is the first chance, but 3 years' time feels more comfortable into an LTP, and it feels like that we're just putting this on hold, and I just felt uncomfortable with timing personally.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, the way to perhaps think about it is the LTP is allocating resources. This master plan is allocating spaces, and they have a different time frame. So the LTP is saying here's our intentions at this moment in time over the next 10 years. This is allocating space over 30. So there potentially does feel inconsistent, but they are trying to do some quite different things.
You've got until the 26th of June before the LTP is finalised.
To do what, Mr. Mayor? What's going to happen in the meeting? To do what? Oh.
He's got another pot of gold. Shall we carry on? So more courts. Is that the 3 courts we've already agreed to in the long-term plan? Cricket. Cricket. Cricket are happy with the domain? So cricket's out? Okay, more courts. I presume those 3 courts we've agreed to in the long-term plan, so that's in. Tennis, they'll be happy where they are, I would have thought.
Yeah, and I guess I just, if there's space that isn't planned to be used within this master plan, which there will be little pockets through annual plan processes and future long-term plans, a tennis volley board, for example, could be just accessible and free to use and enable active recreation. So kind of like the cricket net concept, kind of like the sand volleyball court, small pieces of sport that enables recreation and practice, and it's not the prime location for all fleets of tennis courts, but they're busy places with competitions and things, so this could be another option that we do things in sort of bite-sized community-based levels, going forward through LTP and annual plan projects to council.
So are you suggesting that tennis stays in?
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that when we say it's ruled out, possibly it was never intended to have all the tennis courts down there, clearly, because we've got a fantastic facility, but there might be some component of the community level based tennis that in the future we don't want curtailed, that we can never have a volley board down there if we see that there is a need for it.
Carol, before the lights go out.
Yeah, we've been obviously too still. The tennis courts, as Sarah said, are wonderfully housed and catered for where they are. But we've got that practice netball court where kids warm up, you know, at the end. Do we put a net on that in the summer, or does that stay like a netball court?
Through the chair, it's a combination netball, basketball, and we try to keep it available as kind of a mixture of those, but tends to be more basketball. Kids shooting hoops would be the ones turning up.
But the idea of having a wall to bat the tennis ball on is great, especially if it fits in at the end of the new stadium extension. It'd be just marvellous. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
When it was built, tennis was inside to be played in there.
Through the chair, that is correct. There are tennis lines and we do own the tennis nets. Our conversation with tennis players who are probably more intelligent than me, the floor is too fast for them to play tennis on. And we have tried it and they simply will not play it.
So tennis is out at the stage? Okay. Football?
Yep. Yeah. I can comment on the football. I think we all should look at the Women's World Cup. It was played on, they were looking for premier fields to play that on, and if Ashburton had a premier field, which we've got the premier field, that was capable of doing very high quality football, that'd be a great asset for that facility. But I'm not talking about football being played by kids every week. I think Argyle Park's a great place for that, but there should be the potential to have a facility that is at the very highest level so that it can fulfil that sort of need. If it's a national level, a representative level, something like that.
Through the chair, just to clarify, junior football is not currently played on Argyle Park. There's a handful of teams that practice there, but junior football is played on the Domain at the moment.
Okay. So do you want to keep that in? Oh, sorry, Liz.
Yeah, thank you. And probably I was going to say the exact same thing. I think we've got the we've got a premier field and a community field set aside in the plan, and I think that's what we want to be looking at is any of those sort of premier games that could come to Ashburton. They may not be used every week, or they may be used by different sports, but I think we don't want to rule out football altogether when they could possibly come and play there.
I think we're starting to talk about developing sports fields, aren't we, rather than specifically for a specific sport. Phil?
So do we leave football in sort of with a question mark, or if talking to one of the football people, if they move to Argyle Park, then there needs to be irrigation. That ground's really hard for them apparently, so there's quite a bit of cost involved with that. I think it's great to see them all down on a Saturday morning at the Domain. I think it looks fantastic there, and they seem happy using the storage shed at that one and a half pavilion. So I think if we look after them there, they'll be good. But yeah, to say if we got a Christchurch United playing Wellington or something like that opportunity, then maybe down at the new complex could be good. So I don't know if we leave it in or not.
People's thoughts?
I don't think that, excuse me, through the chair, if we continue with the premier field and the community field options, enabling it to be multi-use, which is clearly what I'm picking up from around the table, doesn't preclude anyone. So it's almost like we don't need to have that decision, because our intention is to be as multi-use as possible, one with a premier sort of level and one with more of a community-based level of field. So it doesn't require additional space than what's already put on the plan, I guess I'd say.
Yep. So happy with football at this stage? Okay. Squash? Richard, sorry.
I would probably be saying no, because I haven't seen a squash court that squash is a unique game in that you build a court and that's all it's used for normally. It's not actually a multi-purpose facility. You know, there's sure changing rooms and that sort of stuff, but most of the squash courts are built in unusual places, you could say. Some are on sports grounds, but some are just in empty sections around town. So I'd probably, to say we put squash there, I'm unsure whether it would be a viable option.
Bill?
I'd like to see it left in there, even if it's penciled in, because I think, depending on how things develop, possibly with rugby, and if Collegiate South is maybe just plucking at something sold so rugby can make a move down there, then there's squash courts there that could be affected. I understand the Harrison Street Cross squash courts, that building needs work. So maybe a central town. I think Celtic will probably keep their ones, and the country clubs will all still run their ones, but maybe a central hub with half a dozen courts could be a good thing and be a real turning point for the sport in Mid-Canterbury.
I'll ask the team, where would you think squash courts would fit in down there?
Yes, that's why we've been working with them and had conversations to date, just purely around what would their size requirement be so that we could put it in. So we'll continue to pursue those conversations, and hopefully they've sort of made some traction. We don't know. I mean, there is talk that you can have squash courts, for example, under I've just forgotten the word.
Rugby grandstands.
Yeah, grandstands and, things like that. Or with it, whether or not the roof size and shape of the barn, for example, could be altered or used, or, all those sort of things to make it purpose-built to meet the need. But there is lots of balls up in the air. That's a bit of a pun. But yes, we've got to sort of unpack that a little bit further. So I think over the whole plan, there's probably a little bit of an asterisk that would say, things may come and go, and council and the community will be informed of any suggested changes in the years to come through annual plan and long-term plan processes. And squash maybe have no allocation right now, but in the future years, there may be a stronger business case to put something in.
It stays in with a question mark, is what you're saying.
Oh,
It's good.
No.
Mr. Chair, I think one of the issues with staying in, it's not currently in. So, and so while there are conversations going on, it's very hard to see from this, if this plan's an allocation of space, then squash doesn't currently have an allocation of space. So when we say leave it in, I don't see that's quite the right approach. If there are conversations that mean the allocation of space can't yet be clarified, then is it appropriate to adopt this master plan with a list of things that aren't currently itemised and might go somewhere? Like, do we need to do that work before we can adopt this plan? Because at the moment there isn't a space allocated to squash. So if squash came along next week or the week after we adopted this plan and said, right, we're ready to move in, well, we don't have an agreed place within the master plan concept where that would be. So things with question marks and ideas floating around the master plan are a little bit, they create a little bit of uncertainty.
Yeah, when national or international games of squash are played, are they not played in a squash court? Of course they're played in a squash court, but are they played on a glass court that comes in and set up on a wooden floor?
Through the chair, that is correct. Some of the major events are set up specifically for that, and in a venue that probably enables better viewing than a standard squash court would.
Yeah, so if you could do it on a court if you wanted to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Have we had the submissions asking for this? I don't believe so.
Through the chair, there was in the submissions there was commentary about squash, but not from the squash groups directly.
So we take it out? Happy?
We're not taking it out is not in.
I'll take it off the screen.
I think this is the other way. This is, having seen the comments in the submissions, is are you looking to include these things that aren't currently in?
No, we'll take it out. Off the screen. Outdoor bowls? Out. Cycling? No. Small ball rifle shooting? Next door. Outdoor playground? Is that in?
Yes, I think we should leave those two areas in the plan.
Walkway and cycling tracks?
I was going to comment on that as well. I think that that's something that could somehow be linked up to other walking tracks if possible.
When I was on the River Trail Committee, we did try to find a way of linking the River Trail to this complex, but yeah, there wasn't an easy solution to it, and with the rifle range and everything there as well. So, but maybe now things have changed a bit and it might be possible. Don't know.
I wouldn't put it in as a thing. Walkway and cycle tracks is just access. You'll have access for cycles and walkways, so that's probably what you're talking about. And then you'd have access to other areas of the town by walking and cycling. So they're not actually being put in. They're just part of what you would do. It's the same as you put a road in. You've got to put them in for access. So, but you're not going to put them in specifically. It's like saying you're going to put specifically roads in. Well, you've got to put them in. You've got to put cycling. You've got to put walkways in to get people to the facilities.
Through the chair to Councillor Ellis's point, you definitely could not go northwest towards the rifle range. That just simply wouldn't work. There is actually an opportunity to go southeast, I guess it is, through the disc golf area and towards where ACL is, and then joining to the river track through the pump track. There is green space there that could be done if that was council's will to create a walking cycling track there.
You see people doing that now. You know, they go out there through, I mean, I've done that myself. You go up through there, past ACL, and you join up to the river track. That's already sort of there, isn't it? I suppose we could formalise it or make it.
Correct. There is people going that way. There is no current formal track. We have people parking in our car park regularly with their mountain bikes and then heading off that way, and that's their join point to the river track in behind ACL there.
I think as the time comes, we do need to develop that, but I'm sure that will happen. I can imagine that will happen.
So you want that wording kept in at this stage? Comment?
I again reiterate, I don't think it's, when I read that, it's about putting a specific walkway, like at Selwyn, they have a walkway that walks around the inside of their gym that people walk, or it's about putting a cycle track in, which is like a velodrome, or that type of scenario. That's not, we're just talking about access to other things. So it's just, to me, it's just access, which you do as a matter of course. You're not specifically going to say where we're going to have a 100, 500 metre walking track.
No. Take that. Sorry. Sorry, just.
Yeah, it's the same as squash, really, isn't it? It's a could happen in the future, but it's not featuring in the plan at the moment, so leave it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not in the plan. We're developing that site, aren't we? It's not in the plan, but I think it will happen anyway. So we may not be involved in developing it. The council, it just might be a thing that the bike groups do or the walkers do or whatever. So I don't think it needs to be in the formal plan.
Okay, take it out. Dance studio. It's on. Yep. Yep.
He's just noting Sarah's comments that there is a rejig of space. We're not building a dance studio per se, but that space may well be suitable and available for people to utilise for dance.
Okay. Richard, sorry.
Yep. In the submissions on the Balmoral Hall, we had many submitters saying that is not a dance space. So when we talk a dance studio, we shouldn't be calling it a dance studio as in ballet or modern jazz. We should be talking about a fitness classroom or a fitness room. That's more what the facility would be used for, rather than as a dance studio where you do ballet. You don't do ballet at a gym. You do ballet at a dance studio. You do fitness classes in a dance room at a gym. So I think that there's a confusion between what the two rooms are not the same facility. I don't go to Les Mills and do ballet. I go to Les Mills and do dance, or my daughters do, in a dance studio at a fitness club. So I think we need to split the two apart. Definitely you've got a dance studio, dance as in fitness dance, potentially at the EA Centre, but you haven't got a classic dance studio.
Phil.
Thank you. I've just got a question now that we've had the indication that Charmaine and Jessie won't be using that. They're not interested in using it, and I think we got the message through the long-term plan. Does that then now alter the plans for the rejig space? Do we actually have to spend the money and do it?
The intention in terms of the driver of that business case was never dance in terms of Charmaine or Dance Works moving there. That was seen as a byproduct that may help the Balmoral Hall challenges of them not having a home. So if the intention was there was not going to be Balmoral Hall through the LTP process, then we were planning to connect with them to see what would you need to enable this to be a space that could be usable. The outcome could be still it wasn't usable, or it was, depending on what we could do. The main driver was to look at the footprint within the EA facility to see are there any underutilised spaces, and there are. So this is the driver of it. We want the space to be more utilised than what it is currently used for. That means more community members having more benefit from the investment that we've already put into EA Network Centre. So whether it's a yoga class, whether it's a meeting, whether it's the holiday program, whether it's sports tournaments, having more space off court to enable a sports tournament to run, all those sort of things, we want it to be used more. So that was the driver. Yes, dance studio has been a term that's been used, but it was multi-purpose space, and that's what the intention is and why we've included it in the long-term plan.
So without a dance studio build, is that project going to be any cheaper?
We still want it to be suitable for yoga and for sport. So it's going to have the flooring that is most suitable, most easy to manage, and ticks as many boxes as possible. It may be cheaper, but it may not. Our intention was, the size in terms of the square metres is limited. Like we know what the maximum is, and that's 100 square metres. It couldn't be bigger without curtailing the other activities that were already there to the extent that they would be unworkable, or not have a meeting room, which is really advantageous, and all those sort of things. So we've got the space and we just want to use it the best we can.
Russell.
Thank you. Remembering we're talking the master plan here, there is no dance studio in the master plan, and I don't believe there should be one.
Caroline.
Reading the consultation document for Balmoral Hall, Balmoral Hall is valued by various community groups for its low user fees and by dance groups for its sprung floors. If the hall is sold or demolished, we propose to build a multi-use studio at EA Network Centre to cater for dance. So I think there was an understood comment that the dancers, if and when they choose, and taking things Richard said, it's not designed for dance, which I think we all universally agree, there was the idea that they were going to be catered for for dance. There was also, I do recall this quite clearly, we were going to build it in advance so that they would not be homeless, the dance people. I recall that conversation as well. And I think we did discuss that at long-term plan verbal meetings, that it would come, when we went to all the centres. So I think we made that clear to people.
Yes, as a byproduct of trying to increase the utilisation of that space of 100 square metres, dance could have been a tenant or a lead tenant of that space if it met their criteria and the timing. But the underlying reasons were trying to increase the utilisation and have it as much as possible as a multi-use space. It wasn't going to be their sole use, and no one else could book it outside of booked commitments. But we were trying to find a solution that could be a solution, but because that decision hasn't made it that way, it's clearly off the cards from that perspective, but we can do it from a fitness perspective.
We did, well, I don't think it is off the cards from that perspective. We have yet to see, don't we, whether they're going to go down there or not. They haven't seen the space. But if I look at option 2, sell both sites, a new space for dance would be developed at the EA Network Centre. That's what it says. So that's what it says.
And the space is there, and it could be if there was
It doesn't say
interest.
could or would or should or maybe. It says It says a new space for dance would be developed at EA Network Centre. No could, should, would, maybe, if, so what, or we're going to change our mind. It says it, and that's what we consulted on. That's from that little brown brochure. And we did go out, because I remember going out saying to someone, no, we won't have it done in advance, but we did say it would be done in advance. We did say that. If we're going to backtrack that, we have to go and reconsult.
The intention for the internal realignment of existing spaces in EA is year 1, so it would be done in advance before the decision about Balmoral Hall. Well, the decision to be made about Balmoral Hall, but before the users don't have capacity. But indications through the submission process is that they don't see this space, which is limited, to be sufficient. So, yeah, that was our
One more comment, please, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
And that may be the case indeed, but that may not be the case when we do not know that. That could be a reaction to trying to say we don't want to move, we're not going to anticipate that, we're not going to think about that, or whatever. Things may have changed. I don't know, but we have to make that clear.
Through Mr. Mayor, and of course at the time of consultation, those things were council's intent, and then we actually had submissions, deliberations, decisions that were different from preferred options. So you just got to be a little bit careful in going back to consultation documents and drawing a definitive link when in fact the consultation and the deliberations resulted in different outcomes from council's preferred options. Those things were valid at the time, and then a whole lot of things have been said and done since.
I was just going to make that comment too, that LTP is done and dusted, and this is a 30-year plan we're looking at for this area, and I think we've got to keep mindful of that this is a 30-year plan, and perhaps take out the words dance studio and put in there a multi-use space, and that's exactly what we're looking for the use. So I'm in favour of it.
And just so you know, the EA Masterplan, to my knowledge, doesn't refer to a dance studio. It always referred to a multi-use space. So again, this is the thing that we're responding here to feedback of what we may have missed. It's not called a dance studio in the master plan because we always envisaged it as a multi-use space.
Keep the multi-use space in.
The multi-use space is in the LTP, and there's not one mention of it in the master plan because it's already in the footprint of the current building. So there is no chat about that in the master plan, but in the LTP.
Richard?
Yes, I'll accept that because what you're talking about is an extension of the gym, effectively, by all means, which is converting it to a multi-use room, but its primary use would it not be for exercise room rather than just a storage room? If it's a storage room, what are we doing it for? Because we could use the existing footprint. We don't need to do it up.
Through the chair, as the title suggests, it will have multiple uses, one of which will be fitness, one of which, as Sarah alluded to, could be supporting the holiday program, one could be a group who is there for a sports tournament needing a breakout space. There's varied uses, one of which is not a storage room.
So I would put down, we would take a dance studio out, but I'd like to promote the idea that a dance studio could be something else we do in the district in the future as a separate project outside of this EA master plan, but it is something that perhaps ties into the come Carolyn, help me, the cultural strategy that we perhaps develop for the district.
So aren't we developing a multi-use area? One of the things that could be used for is dance. Like it's, you know.
Not in,
That's what we-
not in the
as
master
approved-
plan, Mr.
As approved
Chair.
by the LTP, Mr. Chair.
We've done and dusted that in the LTP. There is no dance studio in the master plan. We're not building a building anywhere on this vision here for dance. That's what we should be talking about. We're relitigating the LTP here.
All right. So, are we happy with making it? We're developing a multi-use area.
How about ice skating? It sounds a lot easier.
We're not adding a dance.
No, we're not adding. Okay, so we're not adding dance. Ice skating.
Thank you. There's a couple of comments in here about ice skating, and I've been to a couple of pool complexes that have had the ice skating next to them, but you need a lot of space. Like it's almost the same size as another pool to go beside. So while it would be a nice to have, it sort of balances the usage of the pool. Is that right?
For council's knowledge, the synergies between ice skating and pools is in a heat recovery, so you can have some really good energy and sustainability savings by linking an ice skating rink to a swimming pool. I believe Gore is actually a really good example of how they did that. You're absolutely right about the footprint, however, would need to be significant to achieve that. Yeah.
Phil?
I think we've got a reasonably good facility towards the hills. It's been updated.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, echo what Phil just said. It's an Olympic-sized facility up there and fantastic asset to the community as it is.
Okay. So delete ice skating, softball. They are up at Argyle Park, are they?
Yeah, I'm just looking at, there's a submission on page 20 that said that softball was always in the first set of plans for the Greenfield site, and the staff comment is softball was not included due to having facilities at Argyle Park. However, if it was deemed there was demand, could be included again. So we've had one person submit, I don't know if that, I think the playing fields, we just keep them as playing fields so there's provision for some sports if needed.
I'm sure if they were to develop a diamond, I think I've got a diamond, we've got some at Argyle Park, haven't they?
For council's explanation, there is, I believe, 2 diamonds at Argyle Park and at least 2, possibly 3 at Hampstead All Sports Club as well.
Yeah. So it's probably catered for at the moment in Ashburn, I would think. Right. Is that the list? Mark?
That is the list. Unless there's anything else you want to add to it.
Just a question, how big an area does Patonk need? Because I don't believe that's large, and I know they've just lost the facility that they had, so that was the only reason for asking that question.
Through the chair, the exact dimensions of one Patonk piste is actually what it's referred to as, is relatively small. However, when we met with the Patonk group, their request was for something like 17 to 20 Patonk pistes. So you might be able to take 12 by 8 and times that by 20, and that's what they're actually, in their view, requiring as a space allocation.
Is that what they've got down at
No, they don't currently have that. They believe their future growth demand as a sport is going to need that in the future. I believe our district has some very good Patong players and they attract to Ashburton. So their view is if they were setting up somewhere else that they would be seeking a large volume of piece.
I believe also they, from the conversation, that they've got, I guess, some primary ones that are to a higher standard, and then even their car park, or there was some other additional bit of adjacent land that could also be used, and I think that's how they get to the magic number of 15 or 17 by using their current land differently. We did speak to them quite some months, a year ago possibly, when they thought things might be changing, and we suggested if there was any, unused bowling greens at the time to see if that would work, because they wanted facilities of buildings as well, and haven't heard back from them. So we hope that they have, found a suitable solution, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Cool. Thanks, Mark.
Right, so the next question was around whether or not people thought there was anything in the plan that should be changed, and this is covered on pages 20 to 23, and of those who responded, there was 25 who said yes, 40 who said no. So again, opportunity to work through those now.
Okay. Pool aquatic area, some suggest outdoor pool, some suggest indoor pool hydroslide. So we've discussed those in the LTP. Suggested location is issues of flooding. Don't know.
That was a question that I had. Do we know that if there could be potential flooding through that area?
All I can share with you is my experience of 10 years of being there. I have not seen any risk of flooding through any of the events that we've had at the EA Network Centre site.
So even during the May 21 floods?
Correct. The stormwater swales worked as they were designed to. They certainly carried a lot of water, but they still worked.
Well, there was a lot of water at that time.
And engineers, in terms of when we went through the process, council did to locate the stadium there, clearly took all this into account. So I'm no wiser than anyone who was around the table at those conversations, but I don't think anything has changed. And like Richard said, we've probably tested it more in the last 10 years than it was the prior 10 years before when they made those decisions.
Richard?
I think if you look on the in our website, F5 is the map. It does show that there's a blue area, a lighter blue area over the EA Centre, so it is recognised as a potential flood zone, and obviously a big thing. But if you would mitigate it by stock banks and that sort of stuff, but it is actually on the map as a coloured in area, potentially, that area.
Neil?
Well, we did have the floods. The Ken have had the records, and it was Ellington that was going to be flooded if the stock bank burst, not the EA Network Centre. I think it's higher than what we think.
Rob?
That may be the case that it is higher, but it is visually a low-lying area. As you drive past, significantly lower than the road. I was brought up in Kaikoura. We've just heard been no sign of it coming in the last 10-20 years. I was in Kaikoura in 1993. The town was absolutely inundated with floodwaters because it is a low-lying area and had nothing through it previously for 100 odd years. So you can never outrule flood.
Helen?
We had a very good submission, well, very extensive submission from Kate White, particularly around biking and cycling to the EA Network Centre and catering for those that cycle. do we have plans to cater for the cyclists? You talked about the inadequate bike parks on Cass Street, which are, which is what we've adopted for some reason in town. What plans do we have for bike parks? Are we going to get a cage, or what's our plans for out there? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, so the walking and cycling strategy does envision creating cycle links down to EA, recognising that it is an important area for our community. So that's sort of captured up with the walking and cycling strategy, and the roading team's work in that space as budgets available.
So what that begs the question. What year?
I'll have to go and check with the roading team.
Any other comments on these pieces here on the what we should change? Alternative locations suggested for play area, mini golf, hockey turfs, timing of the sports fields. Liz.
Thank you. Up there saying the sand court may become a pooping area for cats. Is it covered? How do you envisage stopping the cats coming in?
Through the chair, our intention through design and as budgets allow us to create some kind of cover that would go over it, and it would be part of our daily task to uncover and cover as need and desired.
And another question, if that's okay, the mini golf sort of. Are you looking at having sort of a club rental or something, or hire the clubs from EA, similar to the disc golf sort of situation?
Through the chair, our view is as officers, and we'll take guidance, is exactly that. It would be a hire system from reception. You get your club and you get your ball, and like most mini golfs, you lose your ball at hole number 18. If somebody wanted to bring their own club and their own ball down and lose their ball at hole number 18, then so be it. But our view is kind of a community operation rather than a commercial mini golf operation.
Yeah, and there's a comment here that staff don't have the capacity for this, but I'm guessing they do.
Well, I think that was the rationale of not having it manned. It will be constructed in a way that doesn't require staff overseeing it. In terms of the hours of operation, it can be used as hopefully as much as people wish to use it for. And like we said, that the club hire is an option, but if you had your own clubs, then you can choose to do it when you wish.
Caroline?
I think what we should change, I don't think we're in a position to change anything. I think the EA Network's master plan, and we've heard from the experts, you guys have heard from the experts, that it's an ideal plan, maximises the use and space, and is efficient. I think the only thing we need to maintain, and we've got reassurance, e.g. potential perhaps for climbing wall or potential perhaps playgrounds or whatever, that as and when things come up to be developed, maximising space and efficiency will be fine. And if foosball becomes a big thing, well, we'll consider foosball in those multi-use spaces. So I don't think we have any reason to change any, idea about and we're not qualified to do that. I think the plan is marvellous, and we try and achieve and get it developed and get it done, really, as finances allow.
Yep. Phil?
I just wanted to comment on the not a core council responsibility. I think it 100% is. Community wellbeing is well in our wheelhouse.
So no further changes to anything? Happy? Mark?
So the fourth question was around identifying the priorities for some of the three key projects that were part of the plan. So asked people to rank them in order of priority. So that was the result that came out of that one, with the aquatic extension top, followed by stadium and then sports fields from the submitters that responded. So that's the question in relation to that.
No comment. Russ?
Thank you. That feedback graph we just saw there is not what we chose to do in the LTP. And yeah, that follows on from my comment earlier that I just feel timing wise we're a little bit out of kilter. But anyway, we've made the decision now, and for Tony's health and well-being, I wouldn't want to change any of them. But
Looking at the data, it showed that number one was 30%, basically 33, 33, 33. But it was only just a switch around in 2 and 3. So if we first passed the post, we had a even split between all three. But if we're STV, that's where you got your different priorities later in the piece. So it's not, I wouldn't have said it's super conclusive when you looked at the voting effectively.
So,
Thank you. It's a bit of a moving feast as well, isn't it? Because if all of a sudden what hits the fan with AMP and rugby and they're saying that we can chuck a whole bunch of money in to get this thing rolling in the next couple of 3 years, then we've got to talk, right?
And I guess with the aquatic extension, there were 2 options for EA networks. There was a hydroslide and the outdoor pool. So add those 2 together and you are going to get more people wanting that. So, yeah.
so I don't think we want to make any changes. Mark?
No,
Sarah.
sorry, I was just going to concur with Councillor Wilson. The numbers, when I first saw that graph, it wasn't what I'd read and it wasn't what I saw when I looked at the numbers, but the graph depicts it how it does. It's almost sort of that average ranking score. So, yes, it feels jarring to other aspects of it, so I wouldn't be concerned that your decisions don't align to how that graph depicts the results.
Thanks, Mark.
And the last question was just around any other comments and feedback related to the plan. So this is covered on page 25 to 38 of the document. And we've summarised some of the key points that have come up there, which obviously some of those comments have come through the RTP consultation as well. So again, any other changes or additions you want to make to the plan based on those?
Does anyone want to make? Sorry, Liz. Yep.
Just a question. So I know when we did the domain development plan, we then worked out when everything was going to happen. So we had sort of a timeline of this is when we'll put the boulevard in, this is when we'll put the road in, Is that what we are kind of looking at doing for this as well? Because I know we heard from some submitters today about, they'd like to see the playing fields in earlier or as soon as they could be. So how do we do that going forward?
I guess to date, and without Council's direction to change our view and direction so far, I guess we're doing the complete opposite of what the Ashburton Domain does in terms of structuring and putting dates around projects. And our intention behind that is that the dollars you attach to a project differ greatly depending on whether they're forward in the program or at the end. So, and they will become significantly larger figures given this sort of scale and size of the project. So, for that reason, we believe for this plan, every LTP, or if there are smaller projects that we can achieve as part of an annual plan, it's better to sort of refresh it, bring it back to council with the intention that it aligns to the overall sort of direction of the master plan, and then council of the day can decide, yes, this is a great idea to put that project in now with some accurate costings and the usage stats or the utilisation to accompany it, as opposed to sort of a crystal ball approach and some large sums that potentially frighten the horses.
Thank you. Any other comments? Happy? Thank you, Mark.
So I do believe that's it, unless there's any other conversation you want to have around the plan. And I guess the next stage of this document is to finalise it and bring it back for adoption at some point.
Yes, and the some point, I guess, is the question of whether or not council is of the mind to have the slight amendments done and some sort of provisioning for changes in the future clearly marked within the plan and adopt it in the near future, or to hold fire just a little bit of time, 6 months or so, to see how the rugby and AMP showground discussion lands, to see whether or not that has an impact on this. So, 6 months to a year, hold fire, or progress as is, noting that a plan can always get updated in the future.
Yeah, I think obviously make the changes, and if we could come back to us before adoption, just to see that we're all on the same page, and then it can go back and yes, it's ready for adoption, then come for adoption rather than have the changes, if any, on the day. Just have a preview of what you've developed after today's conversation, ready for adoption. And that could take 6 months.
Yes, that would be our intention, to develop the plan from your decisions in relation to this hearing and then bring that back to you. The issue that Sarah refers to is more a deliberate pause while we understand much more clearly how the showgrounds use unfolds. That's the issue that we're not completely clear what council's view of that might be. Russell.
Thank you. And for me, it makes very good sense to just prolong this, pull a figure out there, 6 months. It's a 30-year plan. We've budgeted nothing for it in this next LTP anyway. So waiting 6 months, I don't think, is going to change anything, but it will give us more clarity around some direction that we may take and some timing around that. So I think that's a wise move.
Liz?
And I was just going to say, after Sarah explained how there's nothing in the budget, or there's no sort of timeline for different projects, I think that we just have to see this as a 30-year plan. This is where turf or fields could go in the future. Then there's no hurry. It's a plan.
Richard.
Could I just clarify though, in the long-term plan, we've got, well, I know there's the change of the rooms, I'll call it, within the area, and there's the stadium extension in the last year of the long-term plan, and we've got some investigation into the mini golf, and so some of those things are being progressed. So they are, if I look at the domain plan, there's a dot with a big line behind it. So some of those are actually a higher priority than ones that aren't anywhere. Isn't that sort of true or not?
Well, yes, and remember when we went into both these processes, running broadly in parallel, the LTP and the EA Networks plan, we said that if council allocates resources in the long-term plan to anything at EA Network Centre, it automatically becomes part of the master plan because you've already allocated the actual resource. So the sand space, the mini golf, the internal rejig, all those have been well signalled through the LTP, so we'll get on with those regardless of the EA Networks master plan either delay or changes that you've made because you've already allocated resource to those matters.
So as part of this master plan though, you would have a timeline, even if it's the next 10 years with those in it, because they've potentially been signalled to be in it. This stage, they're in it. And everything else is after that 10-year period, so that would signal what we're actually going to do those things, wouldn't it?
Yes, there's two views of how useful the time and costing schedule is, to be honest, because
it inevitably changes. And one of the things we do find is that when you put a timeline in particular on something, it absolutely raises expectations in the community, and in fact, inside our organisation, we start gearing ourselves up for that work via budgets and planning. So if it doesn't then turn out to be true for whatever reasons apply at the time, we're left with unmet expectations at some level. So one of the things that advantages of not having a set time frame at the master planning stage is that we can point to the genuine direction, but over 30 years we can, all of us, point to the LTP allocating no resource to any of these major changes over the next 10 years, and that indicates a timeline. Now, I imagine that as we start developing annual plans and do LTPs in the future, that there will be pressure, there will be submissions, there will be business cases to advance some of the matters in the master plan in a faster time frame, which the Council of the Day will need to consider as they allocate budget and resources across the whole organisation.
And through the chair, the positive about the mini golf course and the sand court location is they're adjacent to existing infrastructures, and they're in positions and places that aren't suitable for other sports or larger use areas. So it's good in terms of we're able to achieve those within the space locations and using that space in an efficient manner, and it doesn't preclude anything significant such as a softball diamond, or it doesn't preclude anything else, or a community field from happening. So it's not like we're building something new 4 paddocks away and saying, oh yeah, there's the mini golf course. It's right there. So that's why we feel confident to continue with the investigation on the mini golf component with the location indicated in the master plan, even if the master plan wasn't adopted in the a month or so.
Excellent. So that's it, is it? We had allocated till 5 o'clock today. It's all done. Okay, so thanks Richard, Sarah, Mark, and Tony over the back, and councillors for your input today. And the meeting is closed.
Thank you.